Imagine waking up to a world where your savings account loses 5% of its value overnight, while the house across the street somehow becomes 15% more expensive. This isn't a dystopian novel, it's the reality of 2026. If the current trend of asset hoarding and tech volatility continues for just 6 more months, the traditional middle-class dream will effectively vanish, replaced by a permanent economic partition. We are witnessing the great bifurcation. On one side, the global labor market is reeling from a brutal efficiency wave, led by Meta's decision to slash 8,000 jobs, roughly 10% of its workforce, in a single month. On the other, a specific subset of older millennials is defying the gravity of a looming recession by adopting aggressive boomer-style real estate strategies, pulling further away from the pack than ever before. This isn't just about jobs or houses, it's about a fundamental shift in how wealth is protected during a global slowdown. Anthony Scaramucci and analysts at Fidelity are already waving red flags, warning that a recession isn't just a possibility, it's the baseline. Meanwhile, the British pound is trembling against a backdrop of shifting trade dynamics and AI-driven disruption. We are at a crossroads where the old rules of work hard and save are being overwritten by own assets or be owned. If you felt like the economy is moving in 2 different directions at once, you're right. One path leads to the safety of tangible hard assets, while the other leads to the volatility of an AI-disrupted labor market. This divide is deepening every single day, and the numbers don't lie. We are entering a period where the gap between the haves and the have-nots is being replaced by the gap between the owners and the earners. While 2025 was the year of the AI hype, 2026 is becoming the year of the AI reckoning, where the promise of productivity is being traded for the reality of corporate downsizing. If you are currently relying solely on a paycheck from a tech-adjacent industry, this data should be a wake-up call. The safety net is fraying, and the floor is moving. But how did we get here? And more importantly, where are the few who are winning actually putting their money? To understand the future, we have to look at the cold, hard data of the present. We are tracking a chain reaction that starts in the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, moves through the housing markets of suburban America, and ends with the very currency in your pocket. This is the story of how the global economy split in 2, and what it means for your financial survival in the next 6 months. To understand the gravity of the Great Bifurcation, we have to look at the collapse of the tech-labor equilibrium. For a decade, tech was the gold standard for social mobility. That ended in May 2026. Meta's move to cut 8,000 jobs is the tip of the spear. This isn't a correction like we saw in 2023. It is a structural pivot toward AI-centric operations where human headcount is seen as a liability rather than an asset. When 10% of a workforce is evaporated to fund AI capex, it creates a localized recession in the highest earning bracket of the economy. But while the tech sector shrinks, a fascinating anomaly is emerging in the housing market. Older millennials, those born between 1981 and 1981 and 1988, are no longer waiting for a market crash. They are buying. They are acting like the boomers of the 1980s, prioritizing real estate equity over liquid stock market gains. This demographic is currently responsible for a disproportionate surge in home acquisitions, effectively hoarding supply and driving prices up even as interest rates remain stubborn. This creates a feedback loop. As tech layoffs increase, the asset class millennials tighten their grip on property, making it nearly impossible for the younger cohort or the displaced workers to enter the market. Let's look at the 3 scenarios for the next half year. In our optimistic scenario, the AI capex surge pays off instantly. Productivity gains hit the 3.5% mark globally, leading to a soft landing where displaced tech workers are absorbed into new AI service roles. In this world, the British pound stabilizes at 1.35 against the dollar, and the housing market sees a modest 2% correction as supply finally meets demand. However, the data from Fidelity suggests this is unlikely. Their recession guide points to a 65% probability of a contraction. This leads us to the pessimistic scenario. The 10% layoff trend at Meta spreads to Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, resulting in over 150,000 tech jobs lost by December. Amazon, in this tech winter, the pound drops to 1.15 and the housing market doesn't crash. It freezes. Prices stay high because owners refuse to sell, creating a locked-in effect that destroys labor mobility. The most likely scenario, according to Scaramucci and Matrix Port, is a period of extreme digital asset volatility. We will likely see a 2026 where the S&P 500 stays flat, but the underlying components churn violently. The divide between old wealth, real estate gold, and new volatility, iStocks crypto, will reach a breaking point. While the boomer millennials see their net worth grow by an average of 8% through property appreciation, the average earner will see their purchasing power decline by 4% due to the weakening of fiat currencies like the pound and the rise of service sector inflation. This isn't just a theory. Look at the Asian FinTech sector. Funding for deals over $100 million has plummeted, signaling that the easy money era is over. Investors are no longer betting on growth, they are betting on survival. If you have a savings account in a traditional currency, you are essentially betting against the collective intelligence of the revolution and the physical scarcity of the housing market. The British pound's recent struggle is a prime example of what happens when a service-based economy faces a dual threat of slowing global trade and internal productivity shifts. The global slowdown mentioned by Fitch and Mint isn't a distant threat, it's a present-day reality that is manifesting as a sell-off in AI-driven stocks. When companies like TAs and Infosys see a dip, it's not just a market blip, it's a signal that the global outsourcing model is being disrupted by automated code generation. This brings us back to the older millennials. Why are they acting like boomers? Because they've realized that in a world of digital abundance and EA-generated content, physical assets are the only things with a verifiable floor. They're fleeing the volatility of the 2026 digital asset market, where policy and event risks are concentrated, and seeking refuge in the one thing that can't be coded: land. This behavior is driving the bifurcation. We are moving toward a neo-feudal economy where your status isn't determined by your salary, but by your proximity to fixed assets. If you're earning $150 Kentucky but renting, you're more vulnerable than someone earning $70 who owns their home outright. This is the realization that is causing the older millennials to pull away from the pack. They are sacrificing liquidity for long-term stability, and in doing so, they are inadvertently pulling the ladder up behind them. The data shows a 12% increase in multi-property ownership among the specific millennial group since 2024, while the under -30 demographic has seen a 15% decline in homeownership rates over the same period. The gap isn't just widening, it's accelerating. The Great Bifurcation is not just an economic phase, it is a permanent restructuring of the social contract. As we head into the final quarters of 2026, the question is no longer, when will things go back to normal, but which side of the divide will you land on? The data from Fidelity and the aggressive job cuts at Meta suggest that the era of labor leverage is ending, replaced by an era of asset dominance. If the pessimistic scenario holds, we are looking at a world where the British pound becomes a proxy for the volatility of the European tech landscape, and the US housing market becomes a fortress for the few. But wait, there is a counterintuitive silver lining. For those who can navigate the volatility of the digital asset market, 2026 offers a unique entry point into the next generation of wealth, provided they can withstand the 20–30% swings predicted by Matrixport. Aurelius. And Renex, the real danger isn't the recession itself, it's the paralysis of waiting for the old world to return. The boomer-style millennials aren't just hoarding houses, they are hedging against a future where the value of a human hour is drastically lower than the value of a physical acre. As the global slowdown deepens, the most successful individuals won't be those who work the hardest, but those who recognize the transition from an earning economy to an owning economy first. Will you be left holding a devaluing currency and a precarious job, or will you find a way to anchor yourself in the tangible? The choices you make in the next 6 months will likely define your financial trajectory for the next decade. The bifurcation is here. Which side are you on?